The Danish monarchy is facing its most explosive controversy in decades, and what's happening behind palace walls will absolutely shock you. King Frederik and Queen Mary have found themselves at the center of a scandal so devastating that Denmark simply cannot move past it, and the revelations we're about to uncover will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about European royalty. Picture this: the normally composed and dignified Danish royal family, known for their progressive values and modern approach to monarchy, suddenly thrust into a whirlwind of criticism and public backlash that's unlike anything they've ever experienced. The streets of Copenhagen are buzzing with whispers, the Danish media is in overdrive, and social media platforms are exploding with discussions about what many are calling the most significant royal crisis since the abdication scandals of the past century. But what exactly happened that could shake an entire nation's faith in their beloved monarchy? The story begins with what seemed like routine royal duties, ceremonial appearances, and the kind of diplomatic engagements that have defined the Danish royal family for generations. King Frederik, who ascended to the throne with such promise, and Queen Mary, the Australian-born commoner who captured hearts worldwide when she married into royalty, appeared to be the perfect modern royal couple. They represented everything Denmark valued: progressive thinking, international outlook, and a genuine connection with their people. However, beneath the surface of this fairy tale monarchy, tensions were building, decisions were being made, and actions were being taken that would soon explode into public view with devastating consequences. The Danish people, known for their trust in institutions and their generally supportive attitude toward the royal family, found themselves questioning not just individual actions but the very nature of the monarchy itself. The controversy erupted when details emerged about specific incidents that many Danes felt crossed fundamental lines of propriety and responsibility. These weren't minor protocol breaches or simple misunderstandings, these were substantial issues that struck at the heart of what the Danish people expected from their royal representatives. The reaction was swift, fierce, and unforgiving, with public opinion polls showing dramatic shifts in approval ratings and unprecedented levels of criticism flowing from quarters that had traditionally been royal strongholds. What makes this situation particularly explosive is the timing and context in which it occurred. Denmark, like many European nations, has been grappling with questions about the relevance and cost of monarchy in modern democratic societies. Rising inflation, economic pressures, and social challenges have made many citizens more critical of royal expenditures and privileges. When the scandal broke, it provided a perfect storm of circumstances that amplified every criticism and magnified every controversial aspect of the story. The Danish media, typically respectful toward the royal family, found themselves in the unprecedented position of having to report extensively on royal controversies. Newspapers that had spent decades celebrating royal milestones and achievements suddenly found their front pages dominated by scandal headlines and critical editorials. Television news programs dedicated entire segments to analyzing every aspect of the controversy, bringing in constitutional experts, historians, and political commentators to dissect the implications. Social media became a battleground where traditional royal supporters found themselves defending increasingly indefensible positions while critics gained momentum and voice. The hashtags related to the scandal trended for weeks, with millions of posts, shares, and comments creating a digital uprising that the palace communications team seemed completely unprepared to handle. Memes, satirical videos, and critical commentary spread like wildfire, creating a narrative momentum that became impossible to stop or redirect. International media attention added another layer of complexity to the crisis. What began as a domestic Danish issue quickly became a global news story, with royal correspondents from around the world descending on Copenhagen to cover every development. The contrast with other European monarchies became a constant point of comparison, with commentators noting how differently similar situations had been handled in Britain, Sweden, Norway, and other royal houses. The palace's initial response to the growing controversy proved to be woefully inadequate, almost seeming to fuel rather than calm the flames of criticism. Traditional royal communication strategies, developed for a different era and different media landscape, appeared completely out of touch with the reality of modern public relations crises. The carefully worded statements, the emphasis on protocol and tradition, and the apparent expectation that the controversy would simply fade away, all served to further alienate an already angry public. Behind the palace walls, sources suggest, panic and confusion reigned as advisors struggled to develop an effective response strategy. The traditional royal approach of maintaining dignity through silence was clearly not working in an era of 24-hour news cycles and instant social media reactions. Internal debates reportedly raged about how much to acknowledge, how much to defend, and whether fundamental changes in approach were necessary. The financial aspects of the controversy added another dimension that resonated particularly strongly with Danish taxpayers. In a country where transparency and accountability are highly valued, questions about royal spending, the use of public resources, and the cost-benefit analysis of monarchical institutions gained unprecedented traction. Citizens who had previously accepted royal expenditures as part of their cultural heritage began demanding detailed justifications and questioning whether the monarchy was providing adequate value for money. Constitutional experts found themselves thrust into the spotlight as the controversy raised fundamental questions about the role and limitations of monarchy in modern Denmark. Legal scholars debated the extent of royal prerogatives, the accountability mechanisms available to the public, and whether constitutional reforms might be necessary to address the concerns that had been raised. These academic discussions, normally confined to university seminars and legal journals, suddenly became front-page news and primetime television content. The impact on Denmark's international reputation became another significant concern as the scandal continued to unfold. A country that had prided itself on its progressive values, transparent governance, and modern approach to traditional institutions suddenly found itself associated with royal controversy and institutional dysfunction. Diplomatic relationships, trade partnerships, and cultural exchanges all faced potential complications as the scandal dominated international coverage of Denmark. Tourism, a significant component of the Danish economy, began showing signs of impact as the country's carefully cultivated image as a harmonious, well-governed nation came under challenge. The royal palaces and associated attractions, which had been major draws for international visitors, found their appeal complicated by the ongoing controversy. Tour guides reported increased questions about the scandal, and some tourist groups expressed disappointment that their Danish experience had been overshadowed by royal drama. The generational divide in Danish society became particularly evident as the controversy unfolded. Older Danes, who had grown up with respect for royal institutions and traditional hierarchies, found themselves struggling to reconcile their loyalty with their disappointment. Younger generations, already more skeptical of inherited privilege and traditional institutions, saw the scandal as confirmation of their existing critiques of monarchy as an outdated and undemocratic institution. Political parties found themselves in delicate positions as they navigated between respect for constitutional monarchy and responsiveness to public outrage. Opposition politicians faced the temptation to capitalize on royal unpopularity while government officials struggled to balance their constitutional duty to support the monarchy with their electoral responsibility to represent public opinion. Parliamentary debates became charged affairs where constitutional principles clashed with political pragmatism. The role of Queen Mary, as a foreign-born member of the royal family, added another layer of complexity to the public reaction. Her journey from Australian commoner to Danish queen had been celebrated as a modern fairy tale, but the current controversy raised questions about cultural adaptation, loyalty, and whether outsiders could truly understand Danish values and expectations. Some critics suggested that cultural differences might have contributed to the misjudgments that led to the scandal, while supporters argued that such suggestions reflected unfair xenophobic attitudes. The impact on the broader European royal community became apparent as other monarchies watched nervously to see how the Danish crisis would unfold and what lessons might be learned. Royal houses across the continent began reviewing their own procedures, communication strategies, and public relations approaches, recognizing that what happened in Denmark could easily happen elsewhere. The traditional mutual support among European royals became complicated as some distanced themselves from the controversy while others offered quiet diplomatic support. Media analysis revealed how dramatically the news landscape had changed since previous royal scandals, with traditional gatekeepers no longer able to control narrative flow and citizen journalists, bloggers, and social media influencers becoming major players in shaping public opinion. The speed at which information and opinions spread made crisis management exponentially more difficult and required completely new approaches to royal communication. Legal experts began examining the potential consequences of the scandal, including whether any laws had been broken, what accountability mechanisms existed, and whether the controversy might lead to constitutional changes. The Danish legal system, like most European systems, had limited experience dealing with royal accountability issues, making the current situation largely uncharted territory for prosecutors, judges, and legal scholars. The psychological impact on King Frederik and Queen Mary themselves became a subject of speculation and concern as they faced unprecedented levels of public criticism and media scrutiny. Royal biographers and psychology experts analyzed how individuals trained for ceremonial roles and public service might cope with becoming objects of sustained public anger and disappointment. The human cost of the scandal, beyond its political and constitutional implications, raised questions about the personal price of royal life in the modern era. Economic analysts began examining the broader financial implications of the crisis, including potential impacts on the Danish brand, foreign investment, and the complex web of businesses and institutions that benefit from royal patronage. The monarchy's role in promoting Danish exports, attracting international events, and supporting cultural institutions meant that royal unpopularity could have far-reaching economic consequences beyond the immediate costs of the scandal itself. The international diplomatic implications continued to unfold as other nations reassessed their relationships with Denmark and their approaches to royal protocol in bilateral relationships. State visits, diplomatic receptions, and international ceremonies all faced potential complications as the scandal created uncertainty about appropriate protocols and the reception that Danish royals might receive abroad. Religious leaders found themselves in difficult positions as the Danish state church's relationship with the monarchy meant that the scandal had theological and ecclesiastical implications. The concept of divine right, the role of monarchy in national identity, and the church's support for traditional institutions all came under scrutiny as religious communities grappled with how to respond to royal controversy. Cultural institutions, from museums to theaters to universities, faced decisions about royal patronage, naming rights, and ceremonial relationships as the scandal continued to unfold. Many organizations that had proudly displayed royal connections found themselves reconsidering whether such associations remained beneficial or had become potential liabilities in the current climate. The scandal's impact on Danish national identity proved to be one of the most profound and lasting effects of the entire controversy. Denmark's self-image as a well-functioning, harmonious society with effective institutions came under challenge as the royal crisis exposed divisions, conflicts, and institutional weaknesses that many had preferred not to acknowledge. The process of national soul-searching that followed became almost as significant as the original scandal itself. International observers noted how the Danish crisis reflected broader trends in European politics, including declining deference to traditional authority, increased demands for transparency and accountability, and the challenges facing inherited institutions in democratic societies. The scandal became a case study for political scientists, constitutional lawyers, and royal watchers throughout Europe and beyond. The role of traditional media versus new media became a critical factor in how the scandal developed and spread, with established newspapers and television channels finding themselves competing with bloggers, podcasters, and social media influencers for audience attention and narrative control. The democratization of media meant that royal communication strategies developed for dealing with a small number of professional journalists proved completely inadequate for the current environment. As the scandal continued to evolve and develop, its long-term implications for the Danish monarchy, Danish society, and European royalty more broadly remained unclear but certainly significant. The crisis represented a watershed moment that would likely influence royal behavior, public expectations, and constitutional relationships for generations to come. The ongoing nature of the controversy, with new developments and revelations continuing to emerge, meant that the full scope and impact of the scandal remained to be determined. What was clear, however, was that King Frederik and Queen Mary had found themselves at the center of a crisis that had fundamentally altered their relationship with the Danish people and raised questions about the future of monarchy in one of Europe's most progressive and democratic societies. The lessons learned from this royal scandal would undoubtedly influence how monarchies throughout Europe approach their public roles, their accountability to citizens, and their strategies for maintaining relevance and respect in an increasingly democratic and egalitarian world. The Danish crisis had become a defining moment not just for one royal family, but for the institution of monarchy itself in the 21st century. What remains to be seen is whether King Frederik and Queen Mary can rebuild their relationship with the Danish people, whether the monarchy can adapt to the new realities exposed by this crisis, and whether Denmark can move forward with its constitutional system intact or will need to consider fundamental reforms to address the issues that the scandal has brought to light. The story continues to unfold, with each new development adding another layer of complexity to what has already become one of the most significant royal controversies in modern European history, and the ultimate resolution of this crisis will likely have implications far beyond Denmark's borders, influencing how democratic societies relate to inherited institutions and traditional authority in an age of increasing demands for transparency, accountability, and equality. So what do you think will be the ultimate fate of the Danish monarchy after this unprecedented scandal? Will King Frederik and Queen Mary be able to restore their reputation and rebuild trust with the Danish people, or has this controversy permanently damaged the institution of monarchy in Denmark? Don't forget to like this video if you found these revelations as shocking as we did, subscribe to our channel for more explosive royal news and insider information, share this video with anyone who needs to know the truth about what's really happening behind palace doors, and let us know in the comments below what you think should happen next in this incredible royal drama that has captivated an entire nation and shocked the world.